What's up, guys? My name's TB, and today we're going to be reviewing episode 7 of Sword Art Online Season 3, Swordcraft Academy. Now, this week, I plan to do things a little bit differently, trying to switch things up, trying to improve the way that I do my reviews. And instead of going through the whole entire episode like I normally do, pointing out things that catch my eye, things that make sense, things that are new, things that are gonna add like more value to the people who hadn't necessarily watched the episode, because that's how I do my reviews. I'm gonna go through a list of stuff that I thought was good and stuff that I thought was bad, and for the most part it's gonna cover for the most of the episode. Let me know what you guys think of this format, since I am switching it up. So let's start with the stuff that I like and then go to the stuff that I dislike. For the most part, I have more stuff that I like than I dislike. The first thing that I like is it's been 2 years, right? At the beginning of this episode, we see on the bottom of the screen how long it's actually been, what day it is in the real world as opposed to what's going on in the underworld, in the Alicization. And I like that. Last review I said I want them to keep us in the loop somehow without necessarily being in the real world. I want them to keep us in the loop as to how much time has passed and what's going on. Okay, so Kirito was not wasting any time. It's been 2 years since they left that little village in the beginning that they started at when he first entered the game, but he's been making sure that he takes in all the information that he can, and I like that. He says that there's 3 really important things about that menu, about that status menu, and it's how much life you have, what's your object authority or ability, and then what's your sacred skill level. Basically, your object authority allows you to use certain things or not use certain things. Remember when he picked up that blue rose sword? At first, it was too heavy for him to use because his object authority was too low. They defeated those goblins, and then that upped his object authority. He was able to wield the blue rose sword. And then we saw, just like Alice, we saw Yu-Gi-Oh use that sacred skill, that sacred ability, when he made that little reed light up with light. That's an ability. If your ability is too low in the Sacred Hearts, then you won't be able to use that many skills. Hopefully that applies to sword skills as well, because it is a skill and it is in this world. So hopefully that applies to the skills too. And something else that he mentioned is there's certain rules about the world that weren't in SAO and they weren't in ALO, and it's the fact that if you have the ability, if you have the mindset that you are actually the best that you can possibly be, that you're really strong, you are really confident, then you will actually be really strong and really confident. And that's a mechanic that is new and it's different, and I'm glad, but I'm not actually 100% sure if it's something that I want in this world. One, because it reinforces the mentality that you're always the best no matter what, even though you probably aren't, which is an aspect of Kirito that people did not like in season 1 or season 2. He always made it seem like he was the best, he was unbeatable, he was the strongest, and there's no one who can touch him. You know what I mean? That's not the case now. I believe that he's a totally different character now, but that's a argument for another time. Also, I feel like this isn't good for Yu-Gi-Oh either, because you even see him talk about in this episode that he feels like he's not strong, he feels like he's weak, and the only reason why he made it this far is because of Kirito, which I'm glad Kirito was able to encourage Yu-Gi-Oh in the times where he needs it, but I want him to become his own person, and I don't want him to always be relying on Kirito. So this aspect of the world, this mechanic, is really interesting. I'm just hoping that they don't go too far with it. I hope that it serves its purpose, and that's it. The second thing that I like, excuse me, is that Kirito fights his mentor. Now, probably like 7-8 minutes into the episode, we see that Kirito has a mentor. So does Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh has a mentor too. Kirito's mentor is Lena. She seems pretty strong. I like her character design. She's got the long hair, and she seems like a pretty confident, trustworthy swordsman. When they fight, though, she has like I guess like a second weapon. It's like this whip. It's cool because it makes me realize that, like, even though you're a swordsman, you don't have to exclusively use a sword all of the time. And the fight is pretty cool. The fight is it's quick. It's not long at all, because it's more like a sparring match, like a training sort of a thing. They use light effects. Kirito doesn't use any sword skills, because I feel like he only uses those when he's actually fighting something that's gonna be putting him in danger. But the fight is pretty cool. It doesn't last too long. They talk a little bit about his Ironclad style and like The fact that she chose him to be his page for a reason, and that's another thing that I feel like I should explain. A page apparently is an apprentice to someone who's already at a high level in the academy. When they first entered the city, I think it's Zachariah Academy. They entered into this garrison and they went through this tournament. I'm gonna mention the tournament when I talk about my dislikes, because there's something I don't like about the tournament. But the fight between him and his teacher was good. I felt like she was skilled and she caught him off guard several times, especially with the whip. And that was cool. Something else that I thought was good, when Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh have this talk in the garden, they're looking at his flowers, the flowers that he's going to give as a present to Lena when she graduates from the academy or from the garrison, whenever that happens, because it doesn't happen in this episode. Kirito admits that he could not have gotten this far without Yu-Gi-Oh. He didn't have any money, his memories were unreliable, he didn't know the lay of the land, he didn't know where he was going. He shows humility, you know what I mean? There's times where Kirito can act, a little bit prideful, a little bit like he's like, even towards the end of the episode, he has this sort of air about him that like, you can throw whatever you want at me and I'll be able to handle it. Like, well, we'll see, because he's fighting one of the strongest person, in the garrison that he is right now. He's following Volo. But anyway, he shows humility and he admits to Yu-Gi-Oh, like he kind of comforts him in that way. That, he couldn't have done it by himself. And he's not going to leave him alone. He's not going to leave him by himself. The other thing that I like, because we're going down the list of stuff that I like, Kirito gets his own sword in this episode. I'm so glad that he gets his own sword. I had no idea that he was going to even try. But when they found the blue rose sword in the cave, I assumed that would go to Kirito, because he's the actual swordsman. He's the one who trained Yu-Gi-Oh. But it doesn't. He gives it to Yu-Gi-Oh, because Yu-Gi-Oh cut down the Giga Cedar tree with the blue rose sword. So I'm guessing Kirito has just been using whatever common random sword that, he's been able to find. Actually, before they left the town, one of the townspeople told him to cut off a piece of the Giga Cedar tree. He brought it to a blacksmith in the city that they're in now, and he has spent like a year to 6 months trying to make a sword out of the piece of the Giga Cedar tree, the branch that they had. And man, let me tell you, this sword reminds me so much of the Dark Repulsor from the season 1 of SAO. Remember that one episode where him, Kirito, and one of the girls went to this cave and there was this dragon there, and he fought the dragon and he brought back the ingot, which is basically the dragon crap. And Liz made him a sword out of that. It reminds me of that. Again, in season 3, he has a certain material that he brings to someone. They make a sword out of this material, and this sword is freaking heavy as hell. It's freaking epic as hell. When he uses it, it seems like it has some sort of wind property to it, because when he attacks with it, like, the whole entire shop just shakes with wind. And I'm glad that he has his own sword. Actually, maybe at some point he'll be able to dual wield, because they're very reminiscent of the two swords that he had in Ironclad. He has a black sword, and Yu-Gi-Oh has the blue sword, the bluish white looking sword. It looks really cool. I hope that at one point maybe he'll dual wield with both of them, even though that's Yu-Gi-Oh's sword. I'm glad he has his own sword. Well, now I'm gonna go to the stuff that I don't like. In the beginning of this episode, we know, because the show tells us, that they've been training for 2 whole years. 2 whole years have passed by, right? In this little tournament that they had before they joined the garrison, and then they become pages to someone else, they become someone else's apprentice. We see Yu-Gi-Oh fight. We see Kirito fight. What's the difference in both of them fighting? Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't use light effects, and he doesn't use sword skills. He defeats his opponent, yes, and they both win the tournament, yes, but Yu-Gi-Oh is still not using an ability that Kirito is able to use, and he uses it all willy-nilly, like whenever he wants to. Like, we see Kirito fight this random person, like we don't know who they are or who they're fighting, but he's using his light effects, he's using his abilities. They fight each other, and they're actually both using them. So does this mean that Yu-Gi-Oh is not strong enough to use these abilities yet, or did he just choose not to? I go with the first choice. For some reason, he's just not strong enough, because even his opponent wasn't using light effects when he fought him. It's like, come on, man. Kirito trained you, and it's been 2 years. You should be able to use some sword skills by now. I bet your sacred arts are better than Kirito's sacred arts too, like, because he's been in the world longer than Kirito, so he should know at least a little bit more. That's something that I didn't like. For some reason, they didn't show Yu-Gi-Oh using any light effects. Two, we get two more like scumbag, I guess you would call them, I don't know, antagonists. I don't know. When Yu-Gi-Oh and Kirito went back to the garrison for dinner time because Kirito was training with Lina. Remember when they had that little fight? They were training. There was these two people. They were just acting like douchebags, talking behind their backs, saying that they don't work as hard as anyone else. That because they're pages to people who are really strong, then they get special privileges. Excuse me, yada yada yada, all this stuff. And why every once in a while we just have to have these privileged douchebags? Only, like, what purpose do they serve to being around? Like, to show that people don't get treated equally? They're strong. That's why they're there. They're strong. Like, just get over it, my dude. But I don't like this sort of archetype, this character. I feel like the only purpose they serve is for Yu-Gi-Oh or Kirito to show them what's what, and then that will shut them up. Just like in that episode with that one guy who was not convinced that Kirito used to be a swordsman. He used a sword and that shut him up. So I don't know. I just don't like their characters. I hope that they're not there just to be shut up and then that's it. I don't like their character. One thing I didn't like, another thing actually, because I'm on the list of things. Kirito wasn't 100% honest with Yu-Gi-Oh when they were talking in the garden. When they were talking in the garden, right? Kirito didn't tell Yu-Gi-Oh the reason why he's not worried and the reason why he's not going to leave him no matter what. Like, he's not a lost child, you know what I mean? He didn't lose his memories. He has his memories of the real world. They're not lost. He has them. I'm guessing the only reason why he wasn't 100% candid with Yu-Gi-Oh is that, like, he doesn't want to confuse him because he is an artificial flux light, but he's one that was born from a baby's artificial flux lights. So, like, he can't confuse him in the sense that that one dude got confused in the episode previous and he blew up. Like, for some reason, he's just not gonna tell Yu-Gi-Oh everything yet. Maybe he will once they find Alice. I don't know. But he could have been more candid, and he wasn't. And I didn't like that. Another thing that I don't like about this episode, which is probably the last thing on my list, is that Kirito potentially puts Yu-Gi-Oh and himself in danger because he's constantly bending the rules. He bends the rules to train with his sword, with Lina. He bends the rule. He bends the rule to train when he stays out late and he should be inside. Both of them do. And he also bends the rules when he gets his new sword and he trains and he puts himself in that situation where now he needs to fight the strongest guy in the garrison. Like, he knows that he can't be bending the rules because then someone from the Axiom Church is gonna come, or like they're gonna say that he somehow violated the taboo index and then he's gonna be separated from Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, I feel like he has come a long way, but there's still certain situations where I feel like he should just bite his tongue or he should just do what he's supposed to do. That way, he can't put himself in a position where he gets separated from Yu-Gi-Oh or he gets punished for doing something that he wasn't supposed to do. Now, towards the end of the episode, I really like this. This is probably the last thing that I'm talking about when it comes to the episode. Valo says that he wants to punish Kirito, right? Because he got a little bit of dirt on his suit or whatever. And something that Lina says is that Kirito never actually fought in a hand-to-hand sword fight before. Like, he's never fought with real swords before. And this made me laugh because if everyone knew who Kirito really was, he has years of experience in multiple games fighting with swords. So, like, he's not even worried about this fight. You figure that they would question why he's not worried about it, right? He seems confident as hell. I hope that he wrecks this dude. I hope that it's a good fight, but I hope that he wrecks this dude. He even says, like, Yu-Gi-Oh even says, like, it's a miracle that this is the first time he's ever gotten in trouble in a whole entire year. Yeah, well, especially with how he's been bending the rules. But apparently there's two ways to do a fight. It's either, you go, I forget what they're called, but basically you go up to the point where you're about to hit someone and you stop, so it stops short, or you do first hit. Whoever gets the first hit on them is the person who wins the fight. And apparently this guy's really strong. Lina's worried about Kirito getting hurt, but Kirito ain't worried, man. He's like, you're the one who's punishing me. Pick whether you want it to be a stop short or you want it to be a first hit. And that's where the episode ends. This episode was good. I really liked this episode. It wasn't as much action as I wanted it to be, but there was action in it, which is way better than the last 2 episodes. Even though they were important, they were giving us world building and stuff like that. Episode was good. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode. Let me know what you guys thought about this style of review. It wasn't necessarily shorter, but I feel like I was able to give my thoughts a little bit more concisely about what I liked and about what I didn't like. And I didn't have to go through every little thing that was said through the episode. Let me know. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.